Joining us right now, one of our favorite guests, Antonio Daniels, who is now the color analyst for the New Orleans Pelicans, former Washington Wizard guard, and usually we have you on to talk hoops. But this is a different time, Antonio. It's been a crazy couple of months, but these riots and protests and George Floyd situation, you put out a very powerful tweet. Talk about your feelings here of late.
I don't even know where to start. Our country right now is not healthy. It's broken. And in the midst of a broken country, we are lacking leadership when it's needed most. And I know for myself and many people that I talk to and many people that look like me, right now we're not okay. In this world that we're living in now, we are not okay. And it's not just the George Floyd situation. You know, it's Philando Castillo, it's Eric Garner, it's Breonna Taylor, it's Ahmaud Arbery. You know, it's the fact that this continues to happen over and over again. And what truly bothers me, it's not just the fact that it continues to happen over and over again. It's the lack of empathy, the lack of people wanting to see our reality. Because when we speak on our reality and what it looks like from our eyes, it's called race baiting, or it's called playing the race card. And right now, America does not want to have uncomfortable situations. That's why people would rather talk about the looting than they would about the actual problem. People would rather talk about COVID-19 because it addresses everyone. COVID-19 has touched everyone, and it's a big deal and it's a big issue. But when we talk about racism, we can dodge the subject, or we can run and we can duck and put our head in the sand and not discuss it.
You know, one thing we were talking about earlier in the show, Antonio, it's a different perspective. You know, we're four white guys. I'm half Puerto Rican, but look white. I've never experienced DWB, and many of my friends have. Can you talk about some circumstances you've had? You said that you have to have a talk with your 2-year-old. I mean, that's not something I have to deal with, or any of the four of us have to deal with. Talk about that.
You know, it's amazing the conversations that we are forced to have with our children earlier than we'd like to.
Right.
The conversation that my wife and I had with our 9-year-old daughter just 2 days ago breaks my heart. Breaks my heart that these are conversations that we have to have, that my daughter has to tell me, Dad, I don't want you to leave the house because I don't want anything like that to happen to you. I want you to come home to us. Dad, I'm afraid of how this world is going to view AJ, who is our son, who turns 2 this Thursday. These are the conversations that we have to have at home. Everybody doesn't have these conversations. So it's not a race card that's being played. No, we're not stoking the flames of racism. That's not how it works. This is our reality, and these are things that we have to deal with. I have been stopped driving numerous times, and I've had to talk with my mother. It doesn't make a difference how much money I made and what I've accomplished. The fact that I've graduated college, I'm educated, I have a 13-year NBA career, I have the NBA championship ring in my safe, all of these different things. I'm a devoted husband and father. When I get stopped by the cops, I'm nervous as hell. I had to talk with my mother. When you're stopped, it doesn't make a difference how old you are and what you've accomplished. You put your hands where they can see them, and you are respectful. You answer, no, sir, no, ma'am, yes, ma'am, yes, sir. You don't talk back. You do what they ask you to do. But what's disturbing is even when you do that, sometimes that's not enough.
Yeah, can I ask you this, Antonio? When you've been stopped by a white cop, and they've come up and they look at your ID and they realize who you are they more polite?
Yes.
So that when they realize who you are and that you're an NBA baller and you got a championship ring, they're more polite.
Yes.
To you. Yeah.
But that's some might not recognize him. They
I know.
Right, and that's true.
Yeah.
But here's the thing. I don't want to make this a black and white issue because it's not just white cops.
Good. I'm glad you said
That's
that.
the thing. This everything that America's going through right now, it's not black versus white. You know, and I think that's the misconception that's out there. When anytime you put something out there, it's, oh, no, you know, here we go with the race card. Oh, it's black. No, this is not black versus white. To me, this is right versus wrong. To me, this is all of us versus racism. It's not a black versus white issue.
Right.
You know, I have different colleagues and friends of mine that have reached out to me over the past couple of days, and they feel guilty for being white. And I tell them, don't feel guilty for being white. Feel guilty for being silent. In a time like now, because now, more than ever, all of our voices are needed. So it's easy to run and hide and avoid uncomfortable conversations. But as white people, and I don't want to speak for white people, just the same as I don't want white people to speak for me. Your voice is powerful. Your voice is so incredibly powerful because we've seen what protest gets us. You know what people say? You know, they're going about it the wrong way. So when Colin Kaepernick takes a knee, he becomes the most hated man in America. When he does it silently, he's the most hated man in America. You know, at the Olympics, when John Carlos and they raise their fist, they become two of the most hated men in America. That's silent protest. And that's the wrong way to do it, according to America. No, don't do it that way. But then when you go out and you riot, and because your voice is not being heard, now that's the wrong way to do it as well. And Martin Luther King, something that he said when he was in prison, is he said, this is what white people would say at this time. I agree with you in the goal that you seek, but I cannot agree with your methods of your direct action. You know what that means? There is no right way to have your voice being heard. If you do it silently, we're offended, and if you do it loudly, we are offended. Where is the in-between? Where is the gray area where it's okay? Because basically, when you do it silently and you're not being heard, and you do it loudly and you're not being heard, it's basically America telling you, in retrospect, shut up and take what we're giving you.
I don't believe that. I don't believe that. I'm sorry, Antonio. I don't believe that. I believe that there's a place for peaceful protest. And I have people arguing with me on Twitter, you know, about, you know, pointing out that, listen, the peaceful protests are just. We're all in this together and believe that. But you cannot also ignore the thousands of idiots that are taking advantage of this situation to wreak havoc. And they ruin it for everyone.
Don't hear what I'm not saying. Don't hear what I'm not saying.
Yeah.
No. I'm not saying, here's the thing. I'm not saying peaceful protest is not beneficial.
Yeah.
But where has peaceful protest gotten us? This is 2020 that we're talking about.
Yeah. Well, I just
I am not excusing by any stretch of the imagination some of the other things that are going on in this world. I am not. But I refuse to let all of the other things that are going on in this world, in this country right now, take my vision and my focus off of why these things are happening.
Mm-hmm. Antonio, do you think that this is going to be a flashpoint and different than other times? You know, here in Washington, the Wizards put out a statement. It's easy to put out statements, but then weeks pass, months pass. Do you think it's actually going to effectuate real change?
I hope so. I do hope so. And I'm not I don't.
But what does your gut tell you?
This feels different. This feels different to me. You can go back to different situations throughout the course of history that I've been blessed to be alive for where
but wait a minute, hold on, but Antonio, Rodney King, same thing. Riots, I mean, it didn't change.
That's exactly what I'm saying. Exactly what I'm saying. Same thing, this feels different. And that's just the point I was getting to. There have been things that I have been a part of and been blessed to be alive to see. Trayvon Martin situation, the Rodney King situation. This, for some strange reason, feels different. And I'm going to tell you why. Because when you turn on the television and when you see this, it's not just black that's out there. There's a number of white allies. There's a number of people that don't look like me that are out there that have their voice being heard. Because as Proverbs 31 says, we are called to be a voice for the voiceless. And there are so many people out there now that understand the responsibility that they have to be a voice for the voiceless.
Yeah, I wanted to talk to you about that, Antonio. We're talking to Antonio Daniels, longtime NBA player, played with the Wizards. Now he's the voice of the Pelicans. You know, I'm sure you watched The Last Dance, and one of the big points there, I mean, I don't know if it was a big point, but they brought up the whole Republicans buy sneakers too with Michael Jordan. He was a guy who, at the time, shied away publicly from inserting himself in politics. Do you think more and more of the current players, the LeBron Jameses of the world, do get involved and rise up?
Yes, I do. I do. I feel like it's a responsibility to everyone.
And some of them already have. Like I saw Jaylen Brown was involved. I saw
Right.
Malcolm Brogdon in Atlanta.
It's a lot of guys that are involved, and I feel like it's a responsibility to have your voice be heard for everyone. You know, I feel like the Lord blesses us all with two things. He blesses us all with purpose and a platform. Some platforms are bigger than others, but we all have purpose. We all have purpose. And to have your voice out there to be heard is incredible. It is incredible. People need to know that they are not in this alone. And for myself, I'm not just paying attention to what's being said and who's saying it. I'm also paying attention on what's not being said and who's choosing silence during these times.
Antonio, I don't want to bring up a negative, and I think there should be more hype and appreciation for the person who actually caught this on video, because if it wasn't caught on video, the cops could have said anything about the death or cause of death, and obviously no one would know. But that's another story for another day. I didn't want to bring up a negative, but can you imagine if this officer who's he's been charged with third-degree murder and manslaughter, if he gets off? Can you imagine what the protests are going to be like then?
Here's the thing. This is right now about Derek Chauvin, but right now it's been one officer arrested, and it should be 4 officers prosecuted. Prosecuted. Like, here's the thing.
Eventually they might. There's a lot of pressure.
Yeah, but the question is, it's right. What's taking so long? That's the question you ask. This to actually see this over and over again, to have my daughters see this over and over again. And this is why I ask for empathy. This is what I would like to see for people that don't look like me. If you can look on the ground and you can see George Floyd, or you can look on TV and see Trayvon Martin or Eric Gardner or anyone else and not see yourself, not see your husband, your father, your brother, your nephew, or your son, picture, if you could, and how your perspective would be different. Here's the thing about racism. We had a Bible study in our home yesterday with my family. My wife is Mexican, so a lot of her family is Mexican. And I told them, we don't want to address situations until it touches us. And that's where this needs to be different, because racism may not touch you, but just because it doesn't touch you does not mean that it shouldn't impact you or it shouldn't affect you. Anytime you hear Black Lives Matter, you know what the response is? No, all lives matter. Well, if all lives matter, then George Floyd being killed on the ground should impact you the same way it impacts me and my family.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're right. You're absolutely right. We talked about this for a good hour and a half before you came on. I just don't, and a lot of people feel this way, and I can understand why, Antonio. I can understand why, a black guy in America feels this way, but I just don't want to lump Derek Chauvin in with all of the good cops, that all the good things that they do just gets unnoticed and taken for granted, because there is a large portion, I don't know what percentage, of cops that are just good dudes. And they do the right thing.
You know what? My niece is a deputy sheriff in Tampa. I know all cops aren't bad.
Mm-hmm.
I know that. But you know what this country has always done? Lumped everyone in together.
Right.
That's what we've always done. It's not just cops. You know what I mean? I would love to say that all cops aren't bad cops, because I know all cops aren't bad cops. With that same energy, I want to hear that all black men aren't a threat.
Mm-hmm.
I
agree.
agree. All cops definitely are bad cops. I have had some interactions with some fantastic cops, great cops who understand their power and position and how to go about doing their job to protect and to serve. I would never say that.
Mm-hmm.
But the way that the energy that we have with that is the same energy I would like to see with us as black men. Because no, all cops aren't bad cops. No way, no how. But all black men aren't a threat either.
No question about it.
100%. Again, the only thing that I fear here is these guys going to trial. I think that those other three guys will get charged with something. I don't know if it'll be the manslaughter that Chauvin got, but I think they'll be charged with something. But my fear is when those guys go to trial, and it's going to be up to a jury, and juries have black and white and maybe Hispanic, Asian, whatever, all sorts of people. That's going to be, if they end up getting a not guilty verdict, then Minneapolis and the rest of the country is going to do it again.
I'm going to tell you what's disturbing, though. Think about what it says about our system as a whole. For Derek Chauvin to kneel on an unarmed man's neck for 9 minutes with the body cam, know that he's being recorded, not just by his own body cam, other cops' body cams, and by numerous cell phones that are in the area that he's looking at, and it not once crossed his mind that what he is doing in that instance is criminal. This is my issue. Have we become so immune to seeing this that some feel like it doesn't matter what happens, that they'll avoid the punishment anyway?
Mm-hmm.
Because here's the thing. If we go back and we look at history, Philando Castillo, the cop who shot him, who unloaded the clip on him, walked.
All right.
Eric Gardner, the cop who choked him out, walked and was fired 5 years later. So have we become so immune to seeing this, and have certain cops become so immune to this sort of behavior that they feel like it doesn't matter what happens, if it goes to judge and jury, that they're above the punishment anyway?
Well, Antonio, I mean, it's a really tough topic. Hopefully things are changing, and it is a flashpoint, and people rise up, and people focus on some of the peaceful protests. Like I keep mentioning what we saw in Colorado versus the looting and riots, which obscures what's beneath the surface. Yes, there was a death, but there's a lot of things beneath that, and that's an accumulation, too, of a lot of things in the last month, which have all been captured on video, from the Central Park incident to Ahmaud Arbery to George Floyd. It's been an accumulation.
Right, right. And the thing is, it's not just a George Floyd situation.
Right, right.
You know, you can go back and look at name after name after name, and family after family after family that have been impacted.
No question about it. Antonio, we're tight on time. I know you know how it works. We love talking to you all the time, and hopefully next time we can talk to you about Zion Williamson.
Let's talk again
fellas.
before.
You guys have a blessed day.
You too, man.
Thank you, Antonio.
Let's talk again before the season starts again.